So, Luigi, I'm really glad that you enjoyed Frapp as much as I did.
Yeah, it was really fun.
And now we're lucky enough to come face to face with the man who created it all those years ago. We'd like to welcome to the channel Nick Pelling, designer of Frack on the BBC Micro. It's lovely to have you with us.
My pleasure to be here. It's great.
Good. So we'll jump straight into our first question for you, which is one from Luigi.
Okay, Nick, before we start on your eccentric and colourful game, I'd like to ask why the BBC Micro?
Chose me. When I was younger, about your age, bought a home computer called the Acorn Atom. Now, the Acorn Atom was one of the very, very first ones, and it's got to come out. And I'd had a Sinclair programmable calculator, which was like very high tech, and I was able to program it to do like stupid stuff. But then Atom came out, and I thought, that's really good. So I started playing Atom games. There weren't that many. So I thought, I'll write some. So I wrote my own Atom games. And I published them in the back of Your Computer, little home computer magazine with little ads at the back. And then one day I was at school and I had this kind of like a funny sensation or something going on. So it was a Friday. I didn't know what was going on. And I was like asking everybody, what's going on today? And everyone said, I don't know. I got home. I found that a company called Acornsoft had been trying to get hold of me all day, and they've like been phoning everybody. I didn't know, but I just kind of it was in the air. And so the next day was a Saturday. I went to Cambridge, and I came home having agreed to write my it was Arcadians came for them. It's like a Galaxians game, and with a brand new BBC Micro under my arm. So I then took it home and wrote the game over that summer. So yeah, that was so it kind of chose me really, but I didn't mind. It was a good computer to write on.
That's certainly the answer to the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually covered Acorn during this episode. So we have looked at the Atom and we talked about the difference between the Series A and the Series B. And obviously they went on to do Archimedes and that kind of thing as well. So Luigi has been learning a bit about that. Coming on to Frack, Nick. So, you know, I wouldn't dare ask you to justify the use of a pink caveman wielding a yo-yo, but I am curious about what your inspiration was for this game and what kind of games you were playing or reading or books you were reading at the time to inspire the game.
It's actually quite straightforward. I'd previously written some shooty games like Arcadians, which was a kind of a Galaxians kind of thing, and then I wrote a game called Zalaga, which was basically my own version of Galaga, really, but kind of like cut down a bit. And I had a lot of fun with that. But I kind of done shooter games, and I decided I wanted to do something different. And the different thing I wanted to do was I had a very, very clear thing that I wanted to do a non-violent game. I wanted to be inspired by kind of Japanese arcade games. So I used to have friends who would play them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was I really liked the look of them. But so the non-violent game with like big people in, big characters. And it kind of grew out of that, really. That was kind of the starting point. And a friend of mine called Ian Boffin, he used to like come up with game designs and stuff. And he did a game design called Caveman Capers. Right, and on bits of paper. He was a kid he was about 13, 14, and maybe 15. And I liked there was a good idea in there, but it was a bit too cliched. I thought, no, you need a club. You don't have a club. It's not good enough. It's not tactical enough. And I came up with the idea of using yo-yo. And when I was a kid, like 10, 11, I used to play yo-yo all the time. I used to do tricks and stuff and really loved it. And so it kind of like, you use a yo-yo. Yeah, you can't do that. I just did. And I kind of just like, it kind of grew and grew and grew. And it became a nice sort of technical thing that you could reach further away, but while you were doing it, you were vulnerable. So I quite like that as a simple game mechanic, and that was kind of how it grew. Really, it's nice.
And it's a classic example of how creative types have their antennas up all the time, and they're looking at what they're doing and what they're seeing and how they can absorb it into whatever they're trying to create. And what amazes me and Luigi about these things is with video games, you have to combine the creativity and the ideas with the technical, analytical ability to make that happen on a computer as well, which is very impressive. That isn't really a question that I had planned, but if there is an answer to it, then feel free to jump
There was a lot of stuff going on in the air at the time. There wasn't just about that. When you're writing a game, there was a lot of pressure, a lot of competition, and there was a real idea that you wanted to kind of create something really new and that people hadn't seen before that would blow them away. And it wasn't just about a good graphic idea or good sound idea. I love the music in that. I love the music in that. But it was about all of these all at the same time. And I wanted to be 10 out of 10 for everything. So I wanted to be technically 10 out of 10, graphics wise, sound wise, music wise, ideas wise. I wanted to basically just like sweep the board, be really good in everything. And the lovely thing about Frack was that I kind of did it. I kind of like hit all those points all at once in a way that I wanted to, and it took me a while. I had the game going relatively quickly early on, but then I just kind of developed it. Like later levels, once you've gone through all the 3 levels once, you come again upside down, which is like, and then everyone went, "Wow!"
Yeah,
And
so
then,
I've read about that. I haven't managed to get there yet. So
right,
I'm looking
okay,
forward
okay.
to it, but we will do it, won't we? We
Yeah.
will get there. You want to ask your next question?
Okay,
Go
so
on.
when we approached you for an interview, you said you'd got a lot of stories about Frack. So
Oh, yes.
what's one or two of your favorite dinner time stories?
Party stories. Okay, right. When I started writing Frack just before I went to university, so I was like 18. And because I was really chaotic, I was trying to do university and run my own software house at the same time. Everything always like fell to pieces, and I was always late with everything. And so I was went to Manchester University, well, Owens as it was then, and I was so late that I got the worst room in all of the university, the worst room. And my room was so bad that I had a room off it that the guy had to go through my room to get to his. It was called a corridor room, which is like a nightmare. So I was in this corridor room, but luckily, the guy who was in the other room, Richard Bolter, I really liked him. He was really great. And when I was doing Frack, I wanted to get the walk really right, right, and you've got like 4 frames of animation. Okay, and so I got him to walk really slowly and just like hold it, and I sketch it and walk, like try to kind of get everything. And then, having done all this walking, he then lost the ability to walk normally for a while. He was like so caught up in it that he could only like walk. And I suppose it kind of like made him think about walking. And once you think about it, you can't do it anymore in the way you want. So that was it. So
That's a
my
great story. And you wish you had a phone with a screen on it so you could just film one take and then sketch it in your own time, of course. Yeah,
a long time before that. So yes,
absolutely.
had to do it the hard way. Everything had to do the hard way.
Well, you must have another one. There must be another story as good as that one.
Oh God, frack, the name.
Yeah.
Where did the name frack come from? Obviously, it's a swear word, and I didn't want to have a swear word, but a key part of the game came up from right from the start was that it had to be something. He had to say something, and I thought, oh, what can I say? And I was talking to my friend Paul Banks at school, and his mother was an astrologer. And she said to him that all memorable names are like short and percussive in a single syllable. Like Jack, she said, that's a really good name. We do Jack. And I thought, I don't want to be called Jack. And I was thinking, that's a stupid name. What can I call it? And then another friend called Louise Parr Morley. And she'll be surprised by this. She probably doesn't even know this. That when she got annoyed, she would say, "Oh, crack fuck." Okay, and I kind of like these things were in my head at the same time. I thought, Jack, frick, frack, fuck, put them together, frack. There you are. So that's how I called it, and that's why he says it. And so basically, if you dial up that many times, you want to say something like a swear word. So hang on.
Yeah, it's exactly the conversation we had when we were playing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We knew what you were implying, but how did it get to that?
There you go.
And
There you go.
I wonder how many tens of thousands of times that conversation has been had in the past. How did that come about? It's the obvious
Well,
question when you're playing.
the other side of it was actually Frack. I believe was one of the most pirated games of the era.
Really?
I used to go to. I had nephews, and I'd go to like school events, and their computer department would always have all their BBC micros all laid out because every school had them pretty much in the UK at that time. And I would go into there, and they would charge people like 50p or whatever to play the games, and they'd all be playing Frack. And I thought, hold on a second, I didn't sell that many games. So yes,
That was the risk everyone faced into in the 1980s, and to a lesser extent later on as well, I suppose.
But then many years later, I was talking to other authors, and they said they did like research. They reckoned they were all pirated 20 to 1.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the figure.
Mm-hmm.
So while playing Frag, I know it's meant to be a puzzle game, but not a puzzle game, a platform game, but it almost seems part puzzle game because of the rules and like almost presents a puzzle for you. Did that evolve naturally, or was that always planned?
Kind of evolved out of the game. What I have a certain kind of not quite theory, but certain like mindset with writing computer games that you need to set out really clear rules about how it works, and there needs to be some kind of tension inside the rules. Like saying about yo-yoing, that you can yo-yo quite a long way, but you're vulnerable to balloons and things while you're yo-yoing, and you're stuck. So that was the kind of like the kind of balance like that gave you power but kind of responsibility with it. I don't know if that's right, but the kind of the trade-off thing going on. And then once you kind of start with that, you can write a game on with really simple rules like Tetris or something. But the rules have a kind of logic, they have kind of a mind of their own, and the puzzles sort of come out of it in that form. Like when I did the Steam version, lots of the levels are basically puzzle levels. You go, well, how do you do that then? Because on the timing, you have to say, well, how do you do that in 45 seconds or whatever the timing is to get the kind of the medals and things. So yeah, I think simple rules, but think them through and just run with it and see where it goes. That's the idea.
And similarly, the way that the character will fall at an angle off of the platform, and then initially you think that doesn't look right. The way he's not falling naturally, but then when you realise later on in the levels, no, that's part of the puzzle. That's going to mean that you don't step down steps. You end up falling past them, and you have to you solve it, and then you go back the second time and go, I can't actually remember how I did it. I've got to work out again how I got around that bit. So I think it's fantastic, and kind of leads on to my next question, which is we are learning about coding. So I when I was a child, I learned a little bit of basic, like most people did. They kind of read the manual for the computer and that was it. And imagined that one day I would write again. And we're learning that now, aren't we? And we're even starting to look at machine language and this kind of thing, getting a bit deeper into it. So for a potentially aspiring young game designer who at the moment is working within the framework of 8-bit computing, what advice would you have for us?
It's the best. Don't let anyone say otherwise. When you start getting into like PCs with Unreal engines and 3D graphics, you're kind of missing the point, really. They're not really games. They're kind of games embedded in simulations. And you think, well, that's not really very, and the thing that with all those big games, I always used to call it the quest for realism. You You're spending like all that effort making it look like Mario's in 3D. Really? It, why? Why did you go through all that effort? And so 8 bits is really, really brutally game oriented. You just have to say, well, let me just write a game. I'm not dressing it up. You don't need to put a hat on it or a 3D hat on it to be a better game. A good game, the example I always give is Tetris. Anybody could have written Tetris. Anybody on anything. But they wrote it and did really well. So and if you could write a game half as good as Tetris, you'd be doing fantastically.
Yeah. Or Pong.
No one say,
We played Pong for quite some time.
Pong's great.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. He wanted to play it longer than I did. It was me that got bored first. So, it just goes to show that it is purely about the mechanic and how it engages with the neurons in the brain, I suppose.
For Nolan Bushnell and Pong, the first hardware modification they made from that game was a bigger coin box because everyone loved it so much.
Oh yes, okay, yeah, monetizing it.
No, it was always a monetized thing, but they never conceived that it would be so popular that people would be queuing up all day long to play it.
Great.
But no, if you can write a game even half as good as Tetris, you're a genius.
Any practical advice in terms of any pitfalls to avoid on the learning how to code and structure journey or specifics that you would maybe you wish that somebody had told you when you?
No, I was lucky. My first few games I wrote quite badly. I was a kid, and no one said I had no books. I just had to figure it out for myself. So what else do you do when you're a kid? And there's no reference. So I just threw myself in the deep end and just tried stuff and just kept on trying stuff, and I really liked it and just kept on going. The key thing about games development that's completely different from all other kinds of software development is it's interactive. When you write a computer game, its most important thing is to be able to make a change, try it, right? And there's a whole modern type of business called lean startup and even Jira to a certain degree. All these things where they talk about iteration all the time, which basically means failing fast and then fixing it. We were doing that in the 1980s on BBC Micros. We would basically write a game and then basically rebuild it within a minute or 30 seconds or whatever, and try it again, fix it and run it. So it really doesn't matter what idea you have. It really doesn't matter what graphics you have. All that matters is that you can try it and go, oh, that didn't quite work. I'll fix it and fix it, and then keep on fixing it and keep on fixing it, and pretty soon you've got something that was just an idea, but now you're making something. It's come to life. It's in your hands. You've made it happen, and it's fantastic. And that is a small thing, but it's a big thing as well. So
sense of achievement, and then when people start playing it and enjoying it, it's incredibly rewarding.
Okay, here's another top secret. I never liked playing games, right? Okay, I just playing my own game was enough for me. And then what I really liked was other people playing my game. If you're a writer, who are you trying to write for? Some writers like writing for themselves, like the sound of their own voice. But actually, a lot of writers like it when people like their books. So I liked writing games because I liked watching people play games, play my games. That was a big thrill.
Yeah.
So write it fast. Don't be complicated. Just keep fixing it and keep fixing it, and until it's just really how you want it to be, and share it with people.
Great advice. So we go into just a
Yeah.
few quick fire questions now to finish off,
Go
Nick,
on.
if you've got the time.
Of
So
course.
the first one I've got is, what, other than games you've made, what is your favorite 8-bit game?
My favorite
He
8-bit
said he
game.
doesn't like playing them.
Well, okay, my favorite 8-bit game of the ones I wrote was probably Fire Track. Now, Fire Track, big, tall, shooty, scrolly game. I had to invent a whole load of techniques to do that. I, there was on BBC Micro, it was the first game that did vertical scrolling, and I had to invent the techniques to do that. People later found better ways of doing it than me, but I found my way and it worked. On the Commodore 64, like Link used to have, they did it for free, but I had to do the hard way. And so that had big levels, a great soundtrack, lovely graphics, all kinds of technical stuff, and it was all the levels were compressed and kind of expanded out, and it was like a really mad game in terms of the difficult level. The difficult level was like off the top, and it was really fun, and people used to play it for hours and hours. One of my friends at school, Cy Harris, he used to play it in the dark with his feet on the keyboard, right? So when he got killed, all he had to do was press the space bar with his big toe. So he didn't have to move his hands to start the next level. It's true story, true story. There you go.
Very good. You got one more?
Yep.
Yes.
So what was your favorite 8-bit system?
I think my favorite 8-bit system was the BBC Micro, because it had a thing called BBC Basic, and BBC Basic was the thing that kind of broke out of the whole world of 8-bit computing into a thing where kids had learned at school how to program in the computer room, and there were all the BBCs were lined up, and everyone would write BBC Basic, and loads of the kids would go back in lunch times and try to write games and stuff. But there was a whole generation of people who learnt how to program through the BBC Micro. And that was, the Spectrum and stuff had its own Spectrum Basic and stuff, but actually BBC Basic was really, really well, really smartly put together, and it was really an elegant way of writing. It was nice. It was like kind of, yeah, okay, this is cool. They did a good job here.
Well, that's really
And
interesting. Yeah, because I've
so,
never used BBC Basic before. Played
Commodore
things like
Basic was
Granny's
all right,
Garden and that
but it's
sort
a
of.
bit pick and poke, man. Pick and poke.
Yes, yeah, that is true. But I think when we during this episode we did a little bit of a breakdown of the company history of Acorn and the BBC computer literacy program and all of that sort of thing that led to the micro. And one of the observations I had was that the computer seemed to be a little bit underpowered in terms of RAM. So when it came out, the Computer 64 and Spectrum were just about to launch. Sorry, the Commodore 64. And then when the B series came out, it was coming out with 64, but that was just at the point when all of the others were moving to 128 kilobytes of RAM. So it's interesting, even though that was the case, it's interesting that the actual basic operating system was preferential and better. So it's always pros and cons, isn't it, with the different systems.
BBC A had 16K, BBC B had 32K, and then
32,
later,
sorry.
then later on, the BBC Master had sideways RAM and stuff,
Yeah.
shadow RAM, and
Right.
people did variants of that. I think that that wasn't the limit. No, it was that the limit was simply that you could only do certain stuff with it in terms of the size. My dad had a BBC computer, and he had an Atom as well, and he was a pharmacist, and he wrote his own pill counting and software for it, things, and that he used to have all his abbreviations and on his function keys, like, and he had in his pharmacies and stuff. And so it was really, really great that people were all of a sudden able to write programs themselves. That was like kind of a big revolution. I mean, there were always going to be like kids like me who just got it and just went into that, you know, down into it and didn't care, and didn't need books and didn't need explain, didn't need magazines or articles. We just knew we would find a way. But in terms of democratizing and spreading it and making it accessible, BBC Micro was the king. No question about it.
Mm-hmm. Great. So one final question then, going back to your wonderful game of Frack that we thoroughly enjoyed reviewing.
Very pleased to hear it. Very pleased to hear it.
What is the most unexpected outcome from being the designer of Frack?
Oh, how come? People just liked it. People just liked it for years and years and years. I would, I worked at the soft, worked in games for 20 years, and then I left the industry when the industry kind of collapsed around 2000, and I went into embedded and software development, and I'd often find myself in rooms with people roughly of my generation or older or whatever, or younger, or whatever, and someone would say, "Oh, you're that Nick Pelling, aren't you? Who did Frack?" And half people in the room would go, "Oh my God, I love that game." So that was really good fun. That was really nice.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's something I think most of us aspire to be remembered for something. Well, Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Of the couple of interviews that we've done so far, I just think we could keep talking to guys like you for hours, but unfortunately we're all limited on time. So we'd just like to say a massive thank you, wouldn't we, from the channel? Yeah.
Really big thank you.
Cheers, Link.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us, and we wish you all the best. Thank you.
You too. Good luck with the show.